welcome back. It's time for Art 2. If you haven't watched Part 1, you should definitely check that out. The link is in the description. For the purposes of saving space, though, I'm putting up only the rankings for the Art 2 characters here, but at the end of Part 3, I'll show everyone all together. This time around, we're saving the POVs until the very end, picking up with one of the first new characters introduced in Book 6, Carnelian, who promptly died halfway through the book. I did not see that character death coming. I thought for sure Carnelian was going to get her own book and big character arc, so I was so very surprised when she died right in front of the main crew, but that's just how it goes in Wings of Fire. No chance for development means she's stuck at the bottom of B tier. And next up is Anemone. I thought she was a great character in the first arc, and then for a brief moment in Book 9, she became my second most disliked character in all of fiction ever, right behind Clear Sky in the first 3 books of Dawn of the Clans. Anemone used her incredible powers to fuel her self-absorbed insecurities, harassing Moon into being her housekeeping servant. I was so ready. I was so ready for Darkstalker to put her in her place, but Turtle ended up doing that for him, and I guess Anemone did eventually see the error in her ways and had a sort of valid excuse. Anyway, she got a lot better in Book 10 and made it into B+. Icicle, on the other hand, did not improve after being stopped. Despite continuing to go around killing innocent dragons after being given a chance to redeem herself, she still somehow makes it into C tier. I guess the part where she was mostly trying to save her brother while being manipulated by Scarlet is probably why she wasn't lower. And that brings us to the last major character introduced in Book 6, also the main villain of the arc, Darkstalker. The only real villain of the series to get his very own perspective, and even if it wasn't part of the main arc, my goodness, it was so good. Darkstalker is such a complex character while at the same time being so very, very simple. Above all, he is prideful and he is vengeful. Understanding those two things about him allows you to understand almost every time he makes the wrong decision. The nuance in his character comes from the fact that beneath all of his arrogance, he loves others deeply and is a very thoughtful, kind dragon to those who are close to him. I think it is because of this interplay within him between wanting to do what he thinks he knows is best and wanting to not do what everyone he loves tells him is wrong that he is such an interesting character. And I've rambled about this long enough. You're here for the rating. He is the only villain of the series to make it to A tier, but he doesn't stop there. He goes all the way up into A+, legendary. Now, if there was any one character I would enjoy analyzing more than Darkstalker, it would be Clearsight. What an inspiration. Clearsight is the definition of what it means to be a hero, and she takes her rightful place in S tier without a doubt in my mind. She is one of the greats. Fathom! He's so very anxious all the time, and who can blame him? He thinks he might turn evil at any second and murder his friends and family like his crazy uncle did. Luckily for us, I don't think he ever actually had to worry about that because he has such a good heart. A+. And who would Fathom be without Indigo? These two are often touted as one of the best couples in the series, and right in line with that thinking, they rank almost identically in the ratings. Indigo gets A+ as well, right next to Fathom. It's honestly impressive. Oh, hey, remember that crazy uncle I mentioned? Yeah, well, here he is. Albatross's life was actually really sad, and though we'll never say a snap was justified, I can perhaps suggest that it was understandable. He was harassed mercilessly by his own family, used for his powers, and forced to live as an outcast in the very society he dedicated his life to improving. Ultimately, he wound up in B tier. Ugh. Pearl. She seemed so good at the start, but then she got really jealous and spiteful when Fathom realized his powers, ultimately working to keep Fathom and Indigo separated from each other. To be fair, that decision kind of made sense in context, but then she sent them together on the trip to the Nightwings, which was like, what? No, whatever. She got C tier, and I guess that seems pretty fair to me. Whiteout! Yeah! Whiteout is so great. She's so funny and fun and thought-provoking and so strange. But it is her strangeness, I think, that elevates her from being your regular A tier dragon all the way up into S tier. Yes! That is what I like to see. And listener, Clearsight's bestie from high school. She was also a fun character with, I thought, a really interesting take on the perils of being able to see the future. I can't say I agreed with her opinions, but they were certainly fun to read about. She got A tier, despite her relatively low amount of page time. Foeslayer. She's another one of those characters who changes so much over the course of the series, from the silly, clumsy, rebellious youth of the Winglets, to the mother struggling to hold her splintering family together in Darkstalker, to the jaded victim of thousands of years of torture at the hands of the Icewings in Book 7, to the mother who once more has found peace in knowing that she has a second chance at the end of Book 10. Though she doesn't show up often relative to some of the others, she's got some really good things going for her. A tier, and the very top. And on the other side of that crumbling marriage is Arctic. He has significantly less things good going for him. Unlike Foeslayer, he got C tier. Also a bit rebellious at first, but quickly comes to resent all the things that should make him happy. He was a terrible husband and an even worse father. Though I don't think he deserved the ending he got, I can only really say that he brought it on himself. Snowflake and Snowfox. Not technically from the Darkstalker Legends novel, but they existed at the same time that book was going on, and I guess they were technically in the background to some of the things happening in the prologue, at least. I really like these two though. As I've said before, I love me a good villain pair, and these two are definitely a villain pair. Just like in the books, they stick to each other in the ratings as well, both earning spots in B tier, though Snowflake was rated just a tiny bit higher. Diamonds are supposed to be S tier, right? Well, not this one. This one goes in D tier, and I'm surprised she even made it that high. Not only was she an absolute jerk to Arctic, ultimately driving him and his animus magic away from the Icewings forever, she also enchanted a crown to ensure that all future Icewing queens felt every bit as much of the unreasonable hatred for the Nightwings as she did. That's just petty, and pettiness from a queen with world-shaping magic apparently leads to thousands of years of hatred. You just hate to see it. Now, that's not to say the Queen of the Nightwings at the time was any better. Well, actually she was just slightly better in the rankings, but only a little bit. Yeah, I mean, she just wanted to use Arctic and Darkstalker for their powers, and mostly to kill Icewings. Then, when she doesn't think they'll be useful to her anymore, she tries to off them for being a threat to her power. Kinda just disgusting behavior from a queen. And Sunstreak, the character who makes the ending of the Darkstalker Legends novel bearable, if still so painful. He has almost no page time, and we never really get to know him as a character, but all the same, because of his connection and importance to Clearsight in her time of need, he earns a spot in B tier. Alright, back to the main arc. This time we've got Hailstorm. He was shaping up to be one of the greats, the charming, competent, caring older brother who made a heroic sacrifice to save his younger sibling. And then we get to the end of book 7. And yeah, he's still dealing with the leftover issues of being pyrite for so long, but he just kind of goes along with the whole sacrifice a sibling in the diamond trial plan. I mean, if there was any one Icewing who would have been fine living in the 7th circle, it was Hailstorm, but at some point he decides that his brother's life isn't worth that. Despite literally giving up his own for his brother's earlier in the series, I don't really know what was up with that, but he gets B+. Now, if I had to guess, I would say Narwhal and Tundra were almost certainly involved in that decision. These two, I think, are the worst parents in the entire series, and that's saying a lot when characters like Cattail and Cobra exist. They legitimately care more about their social status than they do about their own children. If that's not something that deserves F tier, I don't know what is. And on the complete opposite end of the parenting spectrum, we have Ruby/Tourmaline. She's one of my favorites. A great mom, a great queen, and one of only 2 characters in the entire series who overcome animus magic without more animus magic of their own, with the other being Peril. Ruby is just such a cool character. Definitely earning her spot. An A+. I just wish she was more involved in the main plot. And on the subject of animus magic, there's Chameleon. The Rainwing who couldn't change colors was bullied out of his tribe and came across Darkstalker's scroll, gaining the power to change worlds instead. And for some reason, decides to never use them for anything worth using them for. In the end, he's just a whiny, selfish waste of a dragon, but he had a bad upbringing, so he must have got some pity points or something for that, because he ended up in C tier. Undeserved. Honestly, get him out of there. I don't want him in C tier. Put him in F. Okay, that's fine. The data doesn't lie, he's C tier. This is ridiculous, though. Now, Palm, the Sandwing sister from the prologue of book 10, also ends up in C tier. I have trouble figuring out how to feel about this character. On the one hand, she ignored her sister's warnings, did what was obviously going to lead to trouble for her, and ended up making her sister pay the consequences of her own thoughtless actions. That's just all around terrible. On the other hand, though, she has a tiny bit of an excuse in that she was protecting the child she was pregnant with, the result of those thoughtless actions. I don't think there's an easy answer here, but, well, that's just how it goes in Wings of Fire. Unfortunately for everyone, the child she was pregnant with turned out to be pretty terrible. Onyx, under the influence of Vulture, kidnaps dragonettes and tries using underhanded tactics to murder Queen Thorn for her own selfish gain, but still only falls down to C tier. I feel like she should be lower than that, but okay, I guess. And on the topic of kidnapped dragonettes, poor Ostrich. She gets kidnapped and held hostage not once, but twice in this series, each time in the final book of the arc. I was half expecting the Breath of Evil to capture an older hostage in book 15 as well. She ended ended up in A tier for playing it so cool every time it happens. And would you look at that, we have Vulture, one of her many kidnappers. I really liked how cunning and evil Vulture was. He was one of those villains that was hyped up as being the smart, manipulating kind of character, and he absolutely delivered on that role. It was just kind of like fun and infuriating to watch as his schemes came to fruition, which is the mark of any good villain, I think. And he landed at the bottom of D tier for it. I would say absolutely deserved. Then there's Cobra, the mother of my favorite character. On the one hand, I do have to appreciate the fact that she brought Qibli into the world, but on the other hand, I have to wonder why she ever decided to have children. I mean, I know Vulture pressured her into producing heirs, but gosh, she's so terrible with them. Somehow she gets into C tier? Absolutely insane. In line with this, Sirocco and Rattlesnake are two prime examples of how her kids, I think, would be expected to turn out, and they both get F tier. Just, yeah, entirely selfish, completely lacking morals, and all around terrible. It's honestly a wonder Qibli was any different, but thank goodness he was. And for our final four, we have the main crew, or point of view characters from Arc 2. Just as a quick reminder, Peril was rated in the first video and she got A+. Now we have Moon, S tier! Yeah, she moved way up the rankings for this one. Her book was almost definitely my favorite first book in any of the 3 arcs. It established the characters so well, had some great foreshadowing throughout, especially with the twist of Sora being the murderer. Outside of book 6, though, Moon is sometimes complained about as being a Mary Sue sort of character, one who's just pretty bland and never really struggles to do the right thing. But I don't know, I mean, I've never really been bothered by those kinds of characters before, so maybe I just missed it, but I thought she continued to be a very interesting and great protagonist even after her point of view book, especially with all of the parallels between her and Clearsight. She was just great. Winter! Oh, what a fantastic character. And yeah, he also straight up sucks at times, but I think that's part of what makes him great. He has this massive internal conflict that he's constantly fighting with himself over, and through the course of the series we get to watch him grow and start to overcome those things. Unfortunately, a lot of his development in book 7 kind of got ignored in books 8 through 10, but he really comes back in a new light in book 14, and I can only say I'm really excited to see where he goes in the future. If ever a Dragon Slayer 2 is written, I have a feeling and a hope that Winter is going to play a big role in it. Our sparkly boy gets A+. Then there's Turtle. Turtle is such a mixed bag for me. On the one hand, he's got some fantastic characteristics. His respect for Kinkajou, his compassion for Peril, and his surprising heroism at the end of book 9, sacrificing himself so that his sister might have a chance to save the world. Due to all of those things and more, he actually ends up in S tier. Yeah, S tier. But he also spends like 90% of his own book doing almost like literally nothing useful. Whatever, I've said it before, I'll say it again, the data doesn't lie. Turtle is S tier, and that's just great for him. Okay. Now, here we have it, folks. The final character of Arc 2, Qibli. If you watch this channel for any amount of time, you'll know that Qibli is by far my favorite character, and I am so happy to tell you that he was rated so high, S tier doesn't even begin to cover it. That's right, Qibli makes his own tier even higher than S. It just brings tears to my eyes. Now, the last time I made this tier list, there was one character who made it even higher than Qibli, and I'm not going to spoil the surprise. I won't say yet whether they repeated that feat or not, but I want to hear your predictions in the comments below. Will Qibli remain number 1, or will he be bumped from his place on top yet again? I hope you're enjoying this tier list so far, and I'm super excited to share with you the third and final part soon, but for now, thank you for watching.